And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTameAtRadio.com. I should also say good evening or good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you are in. But anyway, welcome to TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. The world's greatest radio, TalkTameAtRadio.com. You are in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Our phone lines have just opened, so you can get ready to call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, that's Bobby, at gmail.com. If you do choose to use that form of communication with me, my staff has indicated that we are so backed up that your Gmail will fall into a question rotation and will be answered when it comes up. So I say that for those who think that you can just write me and it'll just get read. No, it might take a few weeks to get down there. But anyway, we're here with Mr. Neely Fuller live from Washington, D.C. And let's start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
And how are you this particular day?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay. Today we will continue, and again for the next few weeks, our discussions, Mr. Fuller's discussions or thoughts on politics in the system of racism, white supremacy. That is important to remember, that this is in the system of racism and white supremacy. Our focus today is going to be on the word race, or rather racist, and in particular racist suspect. Now, for a clarification on what Mr. Fuller is talking about, if you have your word guide, that will start on page 323, the word guide. Mr. Fuller, before we go on, could you explain to the people what the word guide is?
The word guide? The compensatory word guide, I call it. That's a word guide making up for what is missing in the definitions of the English language that does not help to replace the system of racism with the system of justice. In other words, I've modified some words and just changed the definitions for some words simply because they need changing. In order to do what? In order to facilitate the job of replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. Words are nothing but tools, and that's why I call it a compensatory, counter-racist, codified word guide. Because words are nothing but tools, like a pair of pliers is designed to do a certain job. A spoon is a tool. It's designed to do a certain job. A spoon is not designed to do the same job of cutting down a tree as, say, a saw. A saw is made for cutting down trees or cutting other objects and whatnot. So is a knife. And so a spoon is used for a different purpose. Words are the same way. Words are nothing but tools in order to get what? In order to get a job done. You first look at the job that needs to be done, then you fashion a tool that will do the job. So the English language has been used by the white supremacists to support what white supremacists do, and that is the system of white supremacy. So it's just not written in stone that you just use a word that's out of place and that doesn't do the job that you want done. original idea is to get the job done. So that's why I fashioned a compensatory, counter-racist codified word guide in order to facilitate what it is that I'm trying to do and what other victims of racism should be trying to do, and that is replace the system of racism with a better system. That system presumably would be the system of justice, which means, and I came up even with a more concise, I think, more functional definition for the word justice, which I wasn't satisfied with the use of the word justice the way I had seen it in many dictionaries. So I changed that definition, or modified the definition, or made it more explanatory in a way that it would be more comprehensible, more easier to understand for the average person who is trying to produce that product called justice, which I say has never been produced, particularly by the definition that I gave it, the compensatory definition. Compensatory just means making up for the definition that I think should have been there in the first place. And so that definition was what? The definition for justice. 2 parts. I made this up about 1980, and that was the definition of, in 2 parts, the definition of justice. Compensatory definition was to guarantee that no person is mistreated.
Yes.
And number 2, to guarantee that the person that needed help the most gets the most constructive help. And so throughout this entire word guide, I've done a lot of words like that.
Yes, sir.
I just gave them my definition. Or I added to the definition of words that are already established. Or just changed definitions all around altogether. And people say, well, you can't do that. Well, that's what I've done.
Yes.
And I will explain to anybody, just what I'm explaining now. Just go over the same words, saying why I did it. Because I'm trying to do a job that needs doing. The job isn't getting done. And using the terms that we use, many of the terms, not all, but maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of words, they're just not getting the job done. People are not communicating in a way that's getting the job done. We need to communicate in a way that gets the job done, and get it done in as rapid and efficient order as you possibly can.
Yes, sir. Okay. With that being said, thank you, Trent McMurray and Kevin Flemister Towns, for your loyal listener, as well as the listener in Michigan. Let's go to the phone lines before we dive into this a little more. Line number 1. Okay. Line number 1. What is your question for Mr. Fuller? Line number 1? You're on.
Hi, Mr. Bobby. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hey, this is your buddy Chris Miller, man, down here from New York and Jacksonville. Good to hear your voice.
Yes, sir.
This question is for Mr. Fuller. So, Mr. Fuller, I got to let you know you've changed my life in many ways with the concept of conflict avoidance by minimizing contact. I say it probably 15 times a day. You minimize that contact, you're going to minimize that conflict. That's become tattooed on my heart and my mind. So the question to you is in a personal matter. Over the years since you've been doing this, has that created a lot of tension inside of your own family, be it immediate family or long family, far-reaching family? And if so, how's that affected your walkingness? I mean, how have you managed that all these years, sir?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
It managed very well. That has been the result for me. I love it. Without even explaining it to anybody, I just do it. In other words, if I have something constructive to say, I will contact people. And that's any people, not just family members, but any people. Have something constructive to say. Constructive to say or do.
Does that put you in a position where people are like, oh, here comes that Mr. Fuller guy again, or he thinks he knows, or he's out there by himself? I was just wondering if that's been a byproduct of this wonderful work you do.
You're wondering what now?
If it's a byproduct of the wonderful work you do, knowing that do you think that people look at you like standoffishly for this work that you do?
Do I think that people
look at you funny because of the work that you are doing in regards to the racism, white supremacy, and the different things that you have said?
No, because I really don't do anything that's at odd. I relate to people in a way that is, just every day. Say good morning to everybody. Try to be as courteous as you possibly can. You don't do anything. You don't try to act like you're an alien or something.
I understand that. I certainly understand that. I just think a lot of people that are on a path of trying to minimize some of this nonsense that we deal with as black people, we become islands, so to speak, because the norm is to follow the status quo and to do the things that are kind of somewhat non-constructive and mindless, and that's the only reason I asked, sir.
Okay. All right, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. By the way, Brother Miller, when you use the word family, if you use the word guide, it's on page 118 of the word guide, which Mr. Fuller goes into it in the first few lines of it under family are, use this word with caution. And then Mr. Fuller goes on further to describe what he's talking about. Again, before we go to the racist issue, let's go to line number 2. Okay, line number 2, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, the first question for Mr. Fuller is, why do you think that so-called non-white people, there are those that believe that all so-called white people are white supremacists? Why do you think they have that mindset, at least some of them?
Why do non-white people, all non-white people think that all white people are white supremacists?
No, not all non-white people, but there are those that have that belief that all white people are the same. Why do you think that is?
Oh, well, I don't know. You'd have to ask those who believe that and let them explain it. See, when people make statements, you ask the person who is making the statement for an explanation of the statement made. That's the compensatory procedure. That's the courteous procedure. In fact, that's the best procedure. Whomever's making the statement, if a person says all white people are white supremacists, then have that person answer your next question, and you should have a next question. Why do you say that all white people are white supremacists? And ask about the evidence and all like that. Try to show examples and whatnot. Or why is the person saying that? And the best person to give an answer to any question is the person who is making a statement that calls for a question.
Okay. What is your second question, sir?
Okay, my second and last question is, Mr. Fuller, you say that you never ask for an apology or ask for respect or ask for love. But in the instance where someone asks for respect or asks for an apology and a constructive result happens because of it, doesn't that then contradict the code? Doesn't that make an exception to asking for it?
No, if a person asks you for an apology, then you apologize. But that's what they want. But you never ask for an apology. See what I mean? And actually, the person who is asking for an apology should not ask for an apology if that person is classified as non-white. But that's just a suggestion. See, everything in codification is a suggestion. So I'm saying that's something that you adopt yourself. You may decide that, oh yes, you're going to continue to ask for apologies. And so you can do that. No one is supposed to condemn you for doing it, or say anything derogatory about you. That's just a choice, because the code says, counter-racist code says, you never ask for an apology, you never ask for respect, and you never ask for love. And there are reasons for not asking for those three things. Never ask for an apology, never ask for respect, and never ask for love. And like I said, there are compensatory reasons for not asking for those three things, because they're based on logic. But if a person doesn't want to follow that, like everything that is written in these code books. Lots of things that people have, that I have in the code book, people have said to me, well, Fuller, I'm not going to do that. And I say, well, that is your choice. Everything in the compensatory code is by choice. So lots of things that people have said. One of the first people that I talked to when I presented the book to that person looked at the book and said that he went through the book thoroughly. He said, I can't find anything in this book, Fuller, that I can use. Nothing in this book pertains to me. And what you have here is really nothing. I mean, it means nothing to me. And so I said, well, that's the way it's supposed to work. You look through it. If you don't find anything that you can use, and if it doesn't work for you, then you don't use it. I mean, and if you find something that you can use, you use it. It's like going through a department store. You walk in, and you look at one counter, and you look to another counter, and you go from counter to counter, and finally you go in the front of the store, and then you come out the back, and you come out the back empty-handed because they didn't have anything in that store that you needed. But if you go in another store, there might be one or two things that you can use. Not all the things in the store, but you might find something, and that's what the books are for. Mm-hmm. That's how they're written.
Okay. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. Urban Flow. Yeah. Super Cool and Everlasting Life. These shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage and click on programs for scheduled times. All this is an exclusive from TalkTameRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We're getting into the term racist, but the phone lines are jumping off the hook, so we're going to get to the phone calls here. But if you would like to call in, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, that's BOBBY, at gmail.com. All right, let's go to line number 1. Okay, line number 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Good morning, you guys.
Good morning, sir.
This is Brother Muko from Baltimore, where we hold the CCA meetings at St. Louis Drive on Saturday, every Saturday, 9 to 10. Right under the dome. And my question for Mr. Fuller today is this: for the people in Baltimore, we're on a real good topic today as far as racists, but could you explain before you get into that really quick how racism and white supremacy is the same thing? A lot of people in Baltimore think that racism is when one race hates another. And I try to explain to a lot of my family, especially my sons and my daughters, that racism is not that is prejudice, and prejudice is not a form of racism. So can you please elaborate on that before you get into the word racist? Because a lot of people in Baltimore don't understand that all white people aren't racist, but you only can be white to be a racist.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, well, that's just my opinion. Like I just said a few minutes before, that is just a suggestion. But if you look at it and you examine it, who are the people who function as white supremacists? First of all, you have to be classified as white and have to be accepted as white by most people who classify themselves as white. People do have so-called quote-unquote racial classifications. In the Northwestern Hemisphere, you're usually considered white or non-white. It kind of varies in some other places, I understand, like in what we call quote-unquote Brazil. And I've been reading some articles recently on that. So even the classifications kind of shift around. I mean, supposedly white and non-white, I mean in a functional sense. Now, if you talk about how it's written on paper, there are 21, I think, of the latest classifications, 21 so-called quote-unquote racial classifications, including some other race. That's a classification. And I have questioned and raised questions, and I haven't gotten a answer that I can understand yet from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
What does a person who belongs to some other race look like? What is the color? Because we're talking about color here. And if I was walking down the street and they say, well, who are you looking for, Fuller? I say, I'm looking for a person who belongs to some other race. They say, okay, some other race? Yeah. I say, yeah, I'm looking. I see a lot of people around. I see a lot of people, I mean, that this supposed to be of this race and that race and whatnot. But I'm looking for a special person called some other race. Now, can you help me point out who is this person who belongs to some other race? And I would know what I was looking for. I would become confused. And I'm still confused by that classification. But that's supposed to be a classification.
Some other race.
Some other race. And that doesn't make sense to know what does a person who belongs to some other race look like. That's a classification, a separate classification from all the other classifications.
Okay.
I mean, and maybe someone in the audience can tell me exactly what a person of some other race looks like. Well, I can't, and I haven't seen.
Okay.
But now you have to be, in order to be a white supremacist, you have to be white, classified as white, accepted as white.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and that's due to the evidence, right, Mr. Fuller? That's due to the evidence, right.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much for the call. Line 2? Yeah. Okay, line number 2. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I had a question. I've been looking at your content. You said that America and Asia and Africa, according to the code, may not be considered an actual place, but a concept. And I had a question about status. Is it important to know what your status is and to know what your status is when dealing with white people or non-white people?
Mr. Fuller?
Well, within what context? I mean, your status as a cab driver, your status as a carpenter, your status as a sorority member. I mean, it depends on what context you're talking about.
Okay, it depends on the context. It depends on what the context is. It determines the status of what.
Yeah, your status is what? I mean, my basic identification is victim of white supremacy. That's my basic identification. I mean, I'm non-white. I'm black, classified as black. So that automatically makes me a victim of white supremacy. That's how I got that classification. You know?
Okay.
According to the white supremacists themselves.
Right, according to the white supremacists, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're the ones who invented this thing called race. I didn't. You know?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, let's see here. Going on page 230 of the revised expanded edition, Mr. Fuller, racist suspect. You have that in bold prints. And a question is underneath that. And the question is, when is it correct? When is it correct to call a person a racist? Could you explain that?
It's only correct to call a person a racist only if the person says that he or she is a racist. Never call a person a racist. Yourself. never, under any circumstance, call a person a racist unless that person that you call a racist says that he or she is indeed a racist. So, what can you call the person? You can say, you're a racist suspect, sir. Mr. Jones, I suspect that you could be a racist. I do suspect you of being a racist. You are a racist suspect.
Based on what?
And the person might ask, well, why are you suspecting me of being a racist? Say, because that's my choice. As a victim of racism, I suspect you could be a racist, Mr. Jones. I mean, you know, and Mr. Jones might say, well, I'm not a racist. Say, yes, I know what you just said, Mr. Jones, but I suspect you could be one. I don't know if you're one. I can't prove that you're one, but I suspect that you could be one. Why? Because, first of all, you're a white person in the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
And since I don't have a list of people who are designated to be the racist, since racism does exist, somebody's got to be a racist. Since I don't have a master list of all the people who are racist and all the people who are not racist, then you, being classified as white, I don't know if you're a white supremacist, which is what a racist is, or not, Mr. Jones. So I suspect you could be one until proven different. And Mr. Jones may ask, he may not ask it, but he may ask, well, who do I prove it to that I'm not a racist? Because I'm saying that I'm not a racist. I'm Mr. Jones and I'm white and I'm not a racist. Who do I prove it to? I say you have to prove it to me because I'm a victim of racism, you know? And if you prove it to me, to my satisfaction, then to me you're not a racist. However, I can't prove that to anybody else. You just proved it to me. You have to do the work yourself of proving it to somebody else, Mr. Jones. That's just the way it works. That's the codified requirement. I can't help you to prove it to somebody else that you are not a racist. Why? Because of a very logical reason. You may prove it to me, but you may be fooling me. So I have no guarantee that I can give to somebody else that you are not a racist. I can just tell somebody else that I don't think that you're one. You're proving to me that you're not one. But I can't vouch for you when it comes to another non-white person.
Yeah, and what that's going to do is beg another question, which we will answer after the break. But the question is, what are the best and correct things to say when asked if a specific white person is or is not a white supremacist or racist? We'll answer that when we come back. TalkToHimAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkToHimAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Coming up next, the answer to that question and more of your phone calls on TalkToHimAtRadio.com. Alrighty, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. A lively discussion this morning. We're in politics, the sixth area of people activity, in particular people relation, and right now we are centering on the word racist. Or yes, we're centering on the word racist, and it can be found in, we're going to do two publications today. The Word Guide on page 323 of the Word Guide. We're going to get to that, and also on page 231 in the Code Book. But let me say this before we get started here. For Jordan, Damon, George, Jason, Wavy, Larry, Brother Damali, Daryl, Harry, Chris, who called in, John, Mr. Sonny, Dr. J, Spring, Dr. Perryman, and Mr. Spencer. got your emails. They're all in order, and I will try to get to them as soon as we can. They just want you to know that they're there. We did get them, so they're there. Mr. Fuller, speaking of racist, on page 323 of the word guide, we want to bring that out. You wrote, and you had it underlined, use this word to apply only to a white person who directly or indirectly participates in the practice of white supremacy, racism, in any one or more areas of activity. During the existence of white supremacy, do not use the term racist to apply to any person or the speech or action of any person other than a person, and you have this parenthesized, or rather, classified as white, who functions as a white, and who speaks and or acts to mistreat any non-white person based on factors associated with the person being non-white. So now we go to page 231 of the Counter-Racist Code Guide, and the question that we asked before we went to break: what is the correct thing to say in response to the question, are all white people racist or white supremacists?
On page 231?
Yes, sir.
What is the correct thing to say in response to the question, are all white people racist? Now, that's a flat question.
Yes, sir.
The answer is, the compensatory answer is, the correct thing to say is one or more of the following. First of all, in answer to the question, are all white people racist? The answer to the question, number one, you can give this answer, I don't know. You can say that.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That might not be the best answer, but it's the best answer if you don't know. If you choose to use that as an answer, you can simply say, I don't know. Are all white people racist? I don't know. Or you can give answer number two. I don't know, but those who are racist are smarter and more powerful than those who are not racist. That's an answer you can give, and that would be a truthful answer, if that's what you believe to be the truth. There's plenty of evidence to substantiate that. I don't know if all white people are racist, but those who are racist are smarter and more powerful than those who are not racist. Why? That's why we have racism. Racism is still here, and it's the most powerful religion and the most powerful form of politics that has ever been invented in the minds of people. And all the evidence shows that. There's no political system, no religious system more powerful than the politics and the religion of white supremacy. According to what? According to all of the evidence. Or you can say number three. In answer to the question, are all white people racist? You can say, I don't think so, but those who are racist, and those who are not, are not. And that would be a truthful statement. You can say that. I mean, you can do this at any official hearing or anything, or unofficial, or in a schoolroom. Say, I don't think so. Stand up among white people and non-white people and just say, I don't think so. But those who are, and those who are not, are not. Now, that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are, and those who are not, are not. Or you can give the fourth answer to the question, are all white people racist? You can say, no. And that would be truthful, according to you. Because everything is according to you, your perspective. Since what? There are no official answers nowhere in the universe so-called court or anything where people have given an answer to that question officially and made that official, that this is, some official response. Are all white people racist? What is the official worldwide response that everybody should give in unison? There isn't one. So you have to have compensatory answers. And this comes down to how each individual sees it.
Okay.
I just made 4 suggestions about how you can answer.
Okay.
And, those are the 4.
Okay. Now, let's go to the Gmails here. This is from Dr. Jordan. He says, Mr. Fuller, I've explained racism to people, and at first it seems like they get it and want to learn more. A couple of weeks go by, I see them again, and they don't want to talk about racism at all. It's like reality started to seep in their brains. They panicked, and then they regressed in thought. Have you, Mr. Fuller, seen anything like this before?
Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That is to be expected. That's the normal reaction. It's like telling a person they have terminal cancer. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to talk about it. I don't even want to think about it. Terminal cancer, meaning incurable. You're going to die from it. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. That's the effect that it has. When you tell people how potent, how awesome the system of white supremacy is, and that it controls every move that they make. That's what begins to sink in. That a lot of moves that they think that they're making on their own, I mean, they're not making them on their own at all. They're being robotized. They're being orchestrated. And that is a realization that most people don't like to deal with. But it's a fact if you're a person of color in a system of white supremacy. In all 9 areas of activity, every minute of every day, you're being manipulated in economics, in education, in entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. If you're a person with color in your skin, you're being manipulated and dominated and mistreated.
Yes, sir.
In all of those areas of activity. By whom? Those white people who have chosen to be white supremacists.
Okay.
And so what do you do as a result of this? If a person doesn't want to talk about it, all right? Like many people have said, I don't want to talk about this racism thing no more. I'm sick of it. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
Then you ask the person, what do you want to talk about? And let the person talk. Don't interfere with what the person's choice is of conversation. Don't resist that. So just ask the question. What do you want to talk about? You said you didn't want to talk about race. That's fine. What do you want to talk about? And let the person talk. But if they talk long enough, chances are, I found out this from experience, they will start talking about a problem of some kind that they have. And if they start talking about that problem, they themselves will start talking about race as a problem.
As a problem, okay.
Now you're right back where you wanted them to be in the first place.
Okay. Dr. Smitherson wrote this, Mr. Fuller. He said, Mr. Fuller, there's a lot of talk going around about the N-word. And my question to you is, if we can say to whites that they're not allowed to use the N-word, but we as African Americans can, and is there power in us taking the word back from the white supremacists and making it our own?
Well, you look in the code book, and it addresses this. You can look in the word guide and the basic book. It addresses that so-called N-word in both books. And so the question is, what is, and this is the official question you always ask in any discussion or any use of the word, what does the word mean? The power of that word has lasted so long, according to what I've written in the code book. The power of that word has lasted so long because of what? Because it doesn't have a definition. You can look in different dictionaries, and that's the first place you go. When you hear a word being used, first place you go is just look in the English language dictionaries. That's the first place you go when people are arguing about what a word means. Go to a dictionary. Pick up any dictionary. There's all kinds of dictionaries lying around. Pick up one of them. Turn to the word that you're talking about and see what it says. Now, what I have discovered years ago, decades ago, is that that particular word called the N-word is considered a derogatory word for a person of African descent, a person of Negroid features, a person of this, that, and the other, usually associated with a person who is black and or a person of color. You know, but it's a derogatory word. That's what it keeps saying. It's derogatory. It's a derogatory word that you use to identify a person who has color in his or her skin, particularly Negroid, or a person of African descent, or, you know, a derogatory word. Derogatory. What it doesn't say is why it's derogatory. And that's where the dynamite is. If you stop and think about it for 40 days or 40 nights, and a lot of people do anguish over the word. I mean, they wring their hands, they cry about it, they run down the hall screaming when somebody uses it, or they curse somebody out, or they want to fight about it. We used to call it, you know, a slang term, we call it the magic word, because it causes people to really get upset. But see, why are you upset in the use of that word? They say because the word is just so powerful. Well, why is it powerful? Because it's derogatory. But why is it derogatory? Now, that is the question that is not answered.
Mm-hmm.
And and I discovered years ago, yeah, that's the key. Nobody even asked that question. Even the smartest people, you know, scholars and whatnot, people who have long discussions, people who write books about just that use of that word, have not stumbled upon the fact that no one seems to ask the logical question, why is the word derogatory? Because that's all the dictionary says that it is. And that's the key to its power. They don't give you an explanation of why it's derogatory. No explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So then I came up with a compensatory definition. I just say a N word. What do I have in the book? It applies to me. And why does it apply to me? Because I say I gave it a compensatory definition. Because when you give a word a definition, it starts losing its power right there. I don't think people think about that. That word in the average dictionary does not have a definition because it says it's a derogatory term for a person, but it doesn't tell you why. All right? Why, in any definition, should always be there. And it doesn't tell you why it's derogatory. So I came up with a compensatory definition that works for me. I say it works for me because when a person calls me that word, I say they're calling me what I am. And that is a victim of white supremacy. That's how I have defined it in a compensatory way. I gave it a definition. And because when I gave it that definition, it will lose its power. Because when a white person calls me that, they're calling me a victim of white supremacy. That's what it means. That's what I say it means. Since it doesn't have a definition anyway, I gave it one.
Would boy be the same? Hey, boy.
It applies to me. In other words, if a person says, hey, you over there, and calls me the N-word, and so I respond, you know, yes, sir. What do you want? You know, you call me a victim of white supremacy. That's exactly what I am. You know, so I'm going to respond to that. Just the way that I put in my mind. See, it's all a mental game. It's all a mind game. See what I mean? I took the word and used it in such a way that it will work for me.
Okay.
See what I mean? Other people have attempted that, but they have attempted it in an abstract manner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand, people say, well, it's an endearing word when people use it among themselves. It doesn't mean the same thing. But they doesn't say what it means. See what I mean? That's the key.
That's the key. All right.
That's why it's lasted so.
Okay. That's why it's lasted so long. TalkToHim@radio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkToHim@radio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are discussing the word racist today, but we've had a lot of calls and a lot of comments about that. If you'd like to call, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and I will try to get that. So if they call you boy, hey boy, you respond to that.
Oh, yes. I mean, that means within the context of racial context, that means I'm a victim of white supremacy.
Okay.
And as a victim of white supremacy, a prisoner of war, you can call me that. I'm a boy, because that's what you are. You're not a man when you are completely shackled, not able to make decisions that anybody will listen to or pay attention to. You got to beg for everything that you get. I mean, you got to beg in the area of all 9 areas of activity now we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
As a victim of white supremacy, as a prisoner of war, I have to beg. I'm a permanent beggar.
Wow.
In every area of activity, take economics. I have to beg. If I want money, I have to beg. Beg whom? The people that have it. Who are the people who are the masters of money on this planet? The white supremacists.
White supremacists. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. Education. If I want better conditions and learning how to do something, learning how to get through this world, I have to beg. What is begging, by the way? Begging is asking more than once.
Yes, more than once.
See, when you got muscle, you don't have to beg.
I'm going to tell you something. You have lit up the phone lines right now. Let's go to the phone lines. Go ahead, line number 1. Okay, you're on line number 1. Go ahead.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Question for Mr. Fuller. So I see interracial dating and gay and lesbian relationships promoted heavily, and it annoys me sometimes. Should I work to promote black man and black woman, or should I just accept other people, say, hey, let them do their thing, and I do my thing? What does Mr. Fuller say to that?
Here again, sometimes I have to apologize. I will often apologize that I don't understand the question, and that people hear that repeatedly from me.
I can rephrase it.
Yeah, go ahead, rephrase it for Mr. Fuller.
So if I see an interracial couple or a gay and lesbian couple, and it annoys me, should I just be accepting of them and not try to promote black man and black woman, or should I try to promote?
Okay.
If a discussion comes up about it, you can just voice your opinion. Just be honest with people. That's what everybody needs. I mean, I want white people, to tell me exactly how they feel about me and why they feel that way. Hey, you're not hurting my feelings at all when you tell me the truth. I want the truth from everybody. All right? So, but also the code in the 10 stops, it says, stop being discourteous. Now that applies to everybody. You're always courteous to people. If I'm talking to a so-called interracial couple and all like that, I show maximum courtesy. That's a duty. I mean, we are trying to become the people that we ought to be. Universal man, universal woman, according to the code. And so one of those characteristics of a universal man or a universal woman is always be courteous, even the people who are not courteous to you. Don't let anybody be more courteous than you are. Have that in your mind in every circumstance, and just talk to people with courtesy. But if they ask you a question, about whether or not you approve of the arrangement that they have chosen, you say no, according to the code. They say, well, you know, we're an interracial couple. That's what we call it. There's no such thing as that, really. It's just a white person having sexual intercourse with a non-white person. And in the system of white supremacy, that should not be. Why? Because it's happening in the system of white supremacy. And that makes the non-white person vulnerable. And you say that. That makes, it's like a warden taking advantage of a prisoner sexually. Something that we generally say should not be done. You don't do that. The warden is not supposed to have sexual intercourse with the prisoner. I mean, the prisoner has to become a non-prisoner in order for that to be even Steven. That's just logical. That's just a procedure. So when a white person is having sexual intercourse with a non-white person in the system of white supremacy, that is an aggressive act against the non-white person. The non-white person is a child being abused, because in the system of white supremacy, all non-white people are children. We're not men and women. So any non-white person that has sexual intercourse with us, we are in that child abuse category. The non-white person is in the child abuse category. That's logical. See, everything is not personal, it's business. That's not the way to do business. You clear up all this stuff about racism first, and then you can have white and non-white in bed with each other, having sexual intercourse as much as they want, as long as they don't do it to the extent that that white people disappear by having babies that are all non-white, and you eliminate the white species. No species should be deliberately eliminated, including white people. White people understand that, and that's one of their greatest fears. So you talk about that. Mm-hmm. You talk about, hey, that's not our intention. You know, we can control that so that there'll be some white people left after everybody jumps in bed and has sexual intercourse and whatnot. I mean, we can just kind of put the brakes on it. I mean, like you do when you're trying to preserve any species. That's the procedure. There's a procedure for doing everything. Mm-hmm. So we disagree. Hey, you know, if we look around and it looks like white people are disappearing from the planet, I mean, white people, as white people, might have some characteristics that need to be preserved.
Yeah.
So you preserve those.
Okay. Let's see here. The people that are on the line, hang on, we'll get you after the break. TalkTainMenRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Hey, thanks for listening, but stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTainMenRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest, and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty, welcome back to the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We're live. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio, and you are in touch with the compensatory concept. I'm Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the show, and this is radio the way it should be heard. On the line, we have Neely Fuller Jr., and he will be answering your calls and also your Gmails if we can get to them. Our topic today is, again, politics, in particular, politics in the system of racism, white supremacy, and we've been focusing in on the word racist. So the callers that are on the line, thank you for holding on. We will get to you, but if you have your word guide with you, Mr. Fuller has on pages 322, 323, and 324, he has racial or racist slurs, racial subjugation, racial subjugationist, racial zeroism, racism, racist, racist America, racist Europe, racist family, racist tribe, racist law, racist school system, racist suspect, suspected racist, white supremacist, and he's given examples, racist war crimes. There's a whole host of topics that he has discussed in the book, and when you get time, you need to look at them so that you can be familiar with what we are discussing. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number two. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Thank you for taking my call. I have a comment and a question. Mr. Fuller, good morning, sir. In terms of words and the word guide, I just wanted to let you know about an experience I had briefly. I was at a law library at a local university, and first time in that law library. And I was surprised to find that there were shelves of books. They had a section that has 3 or 4 shelves of books, and these books were called Words and Phrases. Inside each book was a word or a phrase and its definition. It made me think of you immediately and your word guide, and how you talk about words are tools. Again, in this law library, 2 or 3 shelves of books, big books, 400 or 500 pages each, words and phrases, the definition of each word and phrase. That's my comment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question, sir, is I was hoping, Mr. Fuller, that you could talk about the difference between the quality relationship and the tragic arrangement.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, a quality relationship hasn't been established yet. I use this term. That's the term that I invented. I put it in capital letters. The quality relationship. And we're supposed to be in the process of finding out what that is in order to become what? Universal man and universal woman. And universal man and universal woman presumably would be people who are totally constructive in all of their interactions with all people, all creatures, and all things in the entire universe. That, every move that you make is going to have a constructive result and going to be very satisfying. It's not going to take away fun or nothing like that. Fun is a great part of our existence. Everybody likes fun. Squirrels like fun. Bees like fun. And this doesn't take away the fun. Sometimes people think that, well, what Fuller's doing, he's just trying to take all the fun out of everything. No, I'm trying to make fun the way that it should be. Fun the way that it should be. We have been taught by the white supremacists that fun is killing people. I mean, that's not any fun. We just had a day yesterday celebrating what? Bombs bursting in air. Gunshots. That's what it sounded like. Well, black people get enough of this gunshot thing all over the neighborhood. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be anything that's glorified. But getting back to the subject, yes, words are important. And where was I? You know.
The quality relationship you said was still working on it.
Relationship. Right. We want a quality relationship between everybody on the planet. That's what you call justice. That's what that's all about. You know, starting with the concept of justice, balance between people, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. No person should be mistreated. People are not put in this planet to be mistreated, presumably by whatever created the planet and whatever created people. So you want to, first of all, guarantee that no person is mistreated. That's a part of the quality relationship. And the next part is guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Underline, constructive help in everything that he or she does. Put those two things together. No mistreatment, and you get all the help you need as long as that help is constructive. That's what everybody on the planet is entitled to. That shouldn't be something on the sideline that you just stumble up on every now and then. That should be permanent. That should be consistent. Now, the tragic arrangement is what we have under the system of white supremacy. And what is this tragic arrangement? The way that people interact with each other. I call it the 3 T's. Tacky, trashy, and terroristic. Tacky, trashy, and terroristic. The 3 T's. That's not a quality relationship, but that's how people interact with each other in the system of white supremacy. I mean, I'll give a for instance. When black people interact with each other, even though we call ourselves trying to be brothers and sisters, you know, we got all kind of little cliches and little cute sayings about how black people relate to each other. It's a black thing you wouldn't understand. Well, truth be told, nobody should try to understand it. You should eliminate it because it's tacky, it's trashy, and it's terroristic. And we have the same type of relationship, so-called, but it's really not a relationship. That's why I call it an arrangement. We have this arrangement with white people if you're a person of color on this planet. It's tacky, and if you try to improve on the tackiness, it becomes what? The second T. It becomes trashy. Look at any little get-together, like the get-togethers you had yesterday, the little barbecues and all like that, and you have white people and black people trying to interact with each other. If you look at it on the surface, it looks tacky. It really is. Why? Because it's uneasy. I mean, it's not. It doesn't evenly flow. It's not a quality relationship. I mean, people are straining at trying to get along with each other. Anytime you're straining, that's not quality. Anytime you're trying to figure out how not to offend someone, that's not quality. I mean, you know, you're turning the barbecue over and you're making small conversation and all like that. That is tacky. That is tacky, 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 tacky. I mean, there's nothing to it. It's got no substance to it. It's got no real fiber to it. It's a lot of nervousness going on. It's a lot of feelings that are not there. It hasn't been generated yet. You're trying to build it, but it's just not there. And it's tacky.
Tacky.
And therefore, it's that way with black people themselves. That's why black people, you get a whole bunch of black people together, you can almost feel the tension building. This is why you find all these shell casings among young black people.
Wow.
As what is supposed to be a party. Now, we think that we're having what we call a good time. It starts out that way with that intention. I'm going to have a good time. Everybody's all packing into that little club and whatnot, and it's supposed to be for what? Under the billing, quote, unquote, good time. But in about an hour later, there's squad cars all over the place, blinking lights all over the place, shell casings all over the place, screaming people coming out of every door all over the place, Why? Because it's gone from tacky to trashy, and then what? Terroristic.
Wow. Terroristic. Let's go to the phone lines. What are we on? Line number 3? Okay, line number 3, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Rosalind, and I did leave a message on your website for you. I was calling regarding your segment that you had last week on the health, on health not just being a diet, on being a community, and also being a healthy environment. And I have a project that I'm actually doing with a wonderful group of young men and also with some veterans and some special needs persons. It is a community project where we're actually fixing up housing, rehabbing housing, adding railing for people with wheelchairs and different things that they may need. And we're trying to get a lot of this done, but we go through social services, and social services actually has waiting lists, or there is no funding or resources. So we're trying to raise our own funds for it. And we set up a fundraising page, a GoFundMe page. And I was wondering if you would be able to help us with getting support for that by maybe putting it on the radio show.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. Now, I would have understood what was being said, but I couldn't really hear what was being said. Could someone paraphrase that for me, what the question is?
Yes, we're doing a special community project, and we're trying to raise funds to support the project where we help our own veterans and our own special needs people and those with financial problems in our community. And the specific communities that we're working in are in Philadelphia and in Wilmington, Delaware right now, although we would hope to branch out. But we have a GoFundMe page to try and raise money to help our people in our communities. And I was wondering if you would be able to announce our GoFundMe page on your radio show.
Oh, I'm not in charge of the radio show, so therefore that will have to be done through talking to the owners of the station, and that would have to be something separate. I couldn't do that because I cannot promote any kind of fundraising myself. I don't even promote fundraising for my own program. I can't do that.
All right. That's what I was trying to do, is find some support for our fundraiser. That's actually what I was trying to do, because you had this segment about, health, like I said, not just being a diet, but being community and environment and everything. And what I'm finding is in our community, a lot of people need help, but we're not getting a lot of people that are willing to support. So that's what I was trying to do.
Oh, no, but what I have in the code book now is that all money has an origin. All money that's worth anything anywhere on the planet. And the origin of all money that's worth anything is the white supremacists. So I always say in the textbook, all through the textbook, you ask the white supremacists for money. And even people who are out on the street begging, basically they should ask, if you're a non-white person, if you're a person of color, I know it's very annoying and all like that. And it's certainly annoying to other black people, and really annoying to a lot of white people. But actually, if you're talking about logic, all money has a source. And that source in the system of white supremacy are the white supremacists. So anybody who wants money, and that person is of color, you go to the white supremacists and ask for it. That's what I do when I ask for a job. I'm asking the white supremacists for a means of getting some money, which they provide, either direct or indirectly. That's not saying that all white people are white supremacists, but indirectly, it's the white supremacists who provide money or they withhold money. Any money that any white or non-white person has anywhere on the planet that's worth anything comes from the white supremacists. So you might as well get it directly. Not and then a second non-white person goes to the first non-white person to get the money that first non-white person got from the white supremacists. No, you go directly to the white supremacists. If you want loans or anything else, get it from the source of money. Always go to the biggest source. The person who's got the most.
Yes,
the
sir.
person who has all the control.
Oh.
Try to get whatever you need. And they will tell you, well, can't you get some money from your own people and whatnot? You just simply give a simple answer. Now, I don't have any own people. I don't own any people. I mean, I am a prisoner of war, and I'm going to the warden's office, like Andy the Frame did in the movie Shawshank Redemption. He didn't ask the other prisoners to provide what he really wanted when he wanted something big. He went to the warden and said, Warden, I'd like to have a library. All right? I'd like for you to help me get that library. I mean, the rest of these prisoners, they ain't got nothing to help me get no library. I mean, Red down there, he can help me get some cigarettes and whatnot, but that's nickel and diamond. If you're talking about being serious, you got to go to the white people.
Got to go to the white people. TalkToHimAtRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. Front Street, that's one. Your Time, that's two. And Wiggins World. Now, if you don't know about these shows, all you have to do is go to the TalkTameItRadio.com homepage and click on programs, and there is a list of programs there for you to discover, in addition to a donate button. That's still there, too. But anyway, just go there and look up any program that you want to look up, all kinds of programs. And it is exclusive to TalkTameItRadio.com. In addition to that, you can find out the times for your listening convenience. That's from TalkTameItRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We've been discussing the sixth area of people activity, politics, and in particular, we've been talking about racist. And we appreciate your calls. You have really been very good off the hook today. I mean, just outstanding calls. So keep those calls coming. 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com. We got we got an email from Dr. Blunt. He says this, Mr. Fuller. Do you believe that the race problem can be solved without violence?
Yes. Oh, yes. It can be, but that is to be determined by the white supremacists. Now, whether or not they want to go out of business or not. I mean, they have to make that call. But what the victims of racism do, and there is a recommendation in the textbook, which I won't go into the details, that comes under war. You can use counter-violence. In other words, we're already being violated, all right? White supremacy itself is violence. I think it was Gandhi who said poverty is one of the worst forms of violence. I'm paraphrasing. But he said just being in poverty is violence. Why? Because there's no reason. With all the food that is on this planet, I mean tons of food being thrown away every day, leftovers from parties and all this type of thing. I mean, that can feed millions of people. Just that alone. I mean, just the leftovers from people eating who have a lot of food, have a lot of money, and have a lot of this and that and whatnot. Just the leftovers can feed millions of people. And food that is, in different stores and whatnot and kept there for so long and has expiration dates. And then, even though the food is still edible, the food is still nutritious, it's just plowed under. It's thrown away. It's in all kinds of landfills and garbage fields and all like that. And just 1,000 miles away, somebody is starving for just a mouthful of food, and that food is not there. So people can be fed. People can be taken care of. There's enough on this wonderful planet that the Creator has given all of us to take care of everybody. I mean, in every way that you can possibly name.
Yes, sir.
But the white supremacists violate that. They don't want that kind of operation. They want to walk around and say, I am God, and I will determine who is going to eat. I will determine when people are going to get some decent sleep or have a roof over his or her head. I will determine. I'm this, I'm that. And it's completely unnecessary.
Yes, sir.
And this is violence. You use the word violence. This is violence itself. The system of white supremacy is nothing but a violent system. I mean, even yesterday in the Northwestern Hemisphere, out of all due regard to the fireworks and whatnot, that's all about violence. They glorify violence. I mean, they have reenactments of violence.
Yes, they do.
And this should stop. That yesterday in the Northwestern Hemisphere, what you call the 4th of July, and even Frederick Douglass talked about it many years ago within his context. He condemned it. He said nobody should celebrate that.
Right.
He said particularly the slaves. And so you look at the context, you look at how it's conducted, fireworks, bombs bursting in air, and you sing songs about it with tears streaming down your cheeks as if you're longing for that type of thing again. It doesn't make sense. You know, we need to get rid of this thing. We should have called violence. You know, we should be counter-violent, be against violence.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so, you know, but really be non-violent, which is what Dr. Martin Luther King was trying to get us to be, because counter-violence is a form of violence. But if you're asking me if counter-violence is necessary against white supremacy sometimes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
But it's specified in the book how that's got to be done.
Okay.
Under war.
Under war. And we will hit that later on this year. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me set the clock. Okay, go.
Okay. It's been said many, many moons ago, politics is the conduct of public affairs for private advantage. Politics is the conduct of public affairs for private advantage. Now, this video supposedly showing Donna Hitler Mussolini dump beating up a news person. This is all part of the game of creating an atmosphere of chaos. Things gone crazy. This is the atmosphere they must have for our extermination to take place. Now, they reported that there was over 90 shootings in Chicago over the weekend. I am here. They tell that same lie over and over. I get a newspaper. If they tell me it's over 90 shootings in Chicago over the weekend, I can only read about 4 or 5 shootings in the paper where they say who was shot, where they were shot, maybe what the circumstances was. And then they ended and said, overall, there was more than 90 shootings in Chicago. And they spread that all across the world. Nothing but propaganda. Why are they spreading this propaganda? Setting us up for chaos. Things gone crazy. Because in an atmosphere like that, people can be slaughtered. Now, people, if you're able, if you got some young children or grandchildren, if you're able to get them out of here, if you are able to go, get out of here. They are going to exterminate us. This is what these people been doing for over 5,000 years, 4,000. It ain't nothing new to them. Our thing is to get something to eat, a place to stay, some water, send your kids to school. Their game is, how do I eliminate these dog people from this planet? What are they doing here?
I have to get rid of them.
Okay, my
brother. That is their game and their focus.
Gotcha.
So that's what they concentrate on. All right. And that's what they going to do.
All right, my brother.
Good luck to everybody.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's our brother. They call him the extermination man on the internet. Somebody was telling me about that, but I guess that would be under VGQ. Mr. Fuller, I've got a question from Dr. Thompson. Let me see if I can read it. He says, there is ample evidence that whites are genetically engineered. God never makes anything that lives out of harmony with nature. That's why albinos always die out. Other species just ignore them and allow them to starve to death. Every primate on this planet has white skin. For some reason, people seem to know the difference between fur and skin. You have a comment on that, Mr. Fuller?
My comment is that everything in existence, including roaches, and personally, I don't particularly care for a roach to be crawling on me at any time, but I would not advocate exterminating roaches for the simple reason that roaches exist. When I say exterminate roaches, I mean all of the roaches. I do believe in exterminating any roach that's anywhere within a person's proximity. Because roaches are a great nuisance. Roaches carry germs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I would not be a person who would advocate eliminating the last roach that is on the planet. I would say preserve that roach, maybe 2 or 3 of them at least, because you don't know why they are here. Someone, somewhere, at some time, may, and I've said this for decades, go and take a roach, that vile roach, that thing that crawls around, and it appears out of nowhere and whatnot, it just gets on everybody's nerves. You can take that roach maybe, sometimes in the future. A person can stick a needle in that roach and take some serum from that roach and mix it with something else and instantly cure 15 different types of cancer. I've given that illustration as a hypothetical, as something that could happen. And so everybody will be running around trying to find what's left of maybe a half a dozen roaches that are still on the planet Earth, all right, trying to nurse them back to health because they can do that.
Yeah.
We don't know why things are here, so we shouldn't advocate the extermination of anything.
Absolutely.
To the nth degree.
TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. All righty. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and today's topic has been a hot one, and that's good. We are still in politics, but we're focusing on the word racist, and we've had lots of calls, and we thank you. And if you'd like to join in on the conversation, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. It will not be read today, but it will go into the rotation. And speaking of Gmails, let's go to, I can't pronounce his brother's name, but Brother Delamy. He had a question for you, Mr. Fuller. Let me see if I could read this properly. Let's see on the screen here. He says, Mr. Fuller, do white supremacists use, quote, logic to keep their white supremacy system operational? And number 2, before black people were captured and imprisoned, did they or we use logic?
The answer to the first question is yes. And the answer to the second question is yes, in doing whatever they were doing before. Now, to go back to the first question, did white people use logic to establish a system of white supremacy? Absolutely. You can't get anything done successfully. If anything you do successfully, you're going to have to use logic. Logic is what? What is logic? Logic is just getting something done. It's the process of getting something done. There's a logic for getting things done. Cause and effect. You do something and you get a certain result. That's logic. The result is the result of something that you did. You walk across the room and you go from left to right. So if you're leaving the left and going to the right side of the room, you use logic by walking or crawling or whatever method you use to get from one side of the room to the other, right to left or left to right. And once you get where you intended to go, you use logic to get there. And that's in accomplishing anything. That's in filing your nails or getting a haircut. You use logic. Logic, how are you going to cut your hair? You're going to use a hammer or what? So you say, no, a hammer won't quite work if I'm going to cut my hair. I mean, it just won't work. I mean, a hammer is not made like that. So, well, what do you use? Well, I might use, let's try some scissors or, some type of razor or something with a cutting edge to it, since I'm going to do some cutting. So you use logic by using a tool that will accomplish what you're trying to do. And then you work that tool to see if it works. If it works, that's proof of the logic right there. Okay. If it works. If it doesn't work, it's not logical. So, were black people doing logical things? Sure, black people were fishing, they were hunting, they were planting seed in the ground and getting food and whatnot. According to written history, they were doing these things. What they didn't have is a logical procedure for keeping people who were called white supremacists from being supreme over them, mistreating them based on color. They didn't have any code for that. They had a code for getting down the river in a canoe maybe, but they didn't have a code for opposing an aggressor in the form of the system of white supremacy. And the white supremacists invented a code called racism, and it turned out to be the most powerful political and religious system ever invented in the minds of the people of this planet, and that is what we have right up to this day. There's no system, no government more powerful, no religion more powerful than the government or the religion or the political system or the religious system or whatever you want to call it, the educational system that is more powerful than the system of white supremacy. They use logic to achieve that, meaning they tried it out and found that it worked, and they kept improving it and refining it to what it is today.
What it is today. Speaking about what it is today and on the subject, could you speak just a moment or two about the book and about the word guide, which we have been using today on today's program?
Yes, the basic book is the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. That's the brief supplementary title of it. The official title of both books, both the basic book and the word guide, is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, these words are nothing but tools. They don't mean anything. United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to me, except when I look in the book and all of these words, that title is explained in the book, what that means.
Yes, sir.
And what it's supposed to mean, generally speaking, is what? That we're trying to solve the problem addressed to an individual of the entire world. The biggest problem in the world is the problem of what we call race and or racism, which is white supremacy, functionally. And so that's what the book is addressed to.
Okay.
And it's called a textbook workbook for victims white supremacy addressed to the individual victim. And you can get both the basic book and the word guide by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com.
Okay. All righty. Let's go to the email. So Gmail, excuse me. This is from Mors95. He says, hello, Mr. Fuller. I have one question for you, Mr. Fuller. Is it possible, according to the logic, that white supremacists' goal is to kill all black people and continue the business of white supremacy with other non-white people? Thank you for all your work and for answering this question.
It's possible, but I don't think that that's their plan at all. Because if that was their plan, they could announce it to the entire world. See, when you're actually running a world prison, that's what that is. The warden of a prison has complete control. He's not trying to get control. It isn't any part of the prison that the warden doesn't have control over. So if the warden of a prison, any warden of any prison, decides, and there's nobody else around, to veto it, if the warden decides, with the consent of everybody who is a part of the prison system, decides, we're going to kill all the prisoners today. Every prisoner we have here in our prison, meaning the entire world, if you're talking about white supremacy, we're going to kill them all. And we don't have to sneak up on them or anything like that. We have the entire planet mapped. We know exactly where they are. And we're just going to kill them all. Poison gas or whatever, disease, whatever. Have them kill each other. We know how to do that. Give a certain segment of them some food, some money, and whatnot, and give them guns behind it. And just tell them, now, you will get plenty of this, money, food, whatever you want, if you just go out and kill your neighbors. That's what happened, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, in what we call Rwanda, in what we call Africa, in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
You arm and give rumors and whatnot, spread rumors, spread propaganda around, and get one set of black people to kill another set of black people. That's what black gangs are all about. They are dedicated to run around killing black people. Black people killing black people.
Yes.
That's their goal. They don't have a goal outside of that. And we see evidence of this.
Yes.
It's real easy to do. All you got to do is just put it in somebody's mind. That's where everything is about the mind.
Yes.
Where is your mind? What is your ambition? What is the thing you're looking forward to doing the rest of your life?
Mm-hmm.
And the white supremacists and the system of white supremacists can do that very easily.
Very easily.
So the answer is right there on the surface. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
They don't have to plan to exterminate any black people. All they got to do is just make that decision. And we're out of here. We're gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no defense against that.
Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1? Okay. Line number 1, you're on.
Yes, peace and blessings as usual. I'm always on board, love this show. I get many people on it as I can and let people know what's going on. And I just want to always say, compensatory constructive action meeting this Saturday, Lake Clifton, 2800 St. Louis Drive, Baltimore, Maryland. Compensatory constructive action meeting, 2800 St. Louis Drive, Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you for the show. Have a good day.
All right, thank you. Let's go. Line number 2, you're on. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Fuller. I had a question I would like to ask. I'd like to ask you, why do you think black people are so trusting of white, and especially surviving the things that have been done to us in the past, but yet and still we're very trusting of what they say, and we won't even listen or believe what other blacks say.
Mr. Fuller?
why do black people follow white people and don't pay any attention to what other black people say? Is that the question?
Yes, you can paraphrase it that way.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Fuller, go ahead. Your answer.
Because these are the only leaders we've ever had who are successful. We don't have any successful black leaders because we don't have black leaders. All of the leaders of black people in a system of white supremacy are white. There's no such thing as a black leader in a system of white supremacy. You have black spokespersons. What is a black spokesperson? A black person that speaks. You are a black spokesperson if you're black and you speak. I'm a black spokesperson if I'm black and I speak. So I'm black and I'm speaking right now. So I'm speaking. But that's all that I do. I speak. But I'm a prisoner of war, speaking. The white supremacists run the prison. They are supreme. White supremacy. I'm not supreme in nothing. I'm a prisoner of those who are supreme. Supreme over what? Supreme over me. These are the people that I depend on to keep breathing. If I want to keep breathing, I do so with their permission.
Yes, sir.
As a prisoner of war. They run the prison hospital. I don't. See what I mean? If I get sick, I have to ask the white supremacists to take care of me, to take care of my sickness.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Even black gangbangers, you know, the heads, you might say, of gangs, the biggest gangs, when they get hit with a 9mm or 44 slug, what do? They want someone to call 911 and be rushed to a hospital somewhere that their gang has no control over and wouldn't know how to operate anyway.
Wow.
They are on public welfare. You hear some black people say, I'm a member of a gang, I don't call no 911 for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, now, we'll see if we can put that to a test. When 15 or 20 members of your gang get hit, you're going to call somebody to call somebody, and it ain't going to be members of your gang, because they don't know how to repair nothing. They just know how to break up everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So there you are, the little fellow that you used to beat up in school when he was going to high school trying to get to be a doctor, little Cletus. I've given this illustration many times. Let's look at it like it is now. Here's a black person. He's big and tough. He can whip anybody in the neighborhood. All right? But one of these days, somebody who's not so tough, somebody who's really afraid of him, shoots him. He goes to the hospital. He's got a reputation for beating up little Cletus all during little Cletus's time in high school. Little Cletus almost got his eyes knocked out. He's wearing glasses. I mean, you know, trying to study to be a doctor. All right? But you punched him in the eye while he was wearing glasses. And little Cletus went to the hospital, and somebody helped him to retain his sight. And he still tried to be a doctor. So little Cletus goes on, finishes high school, goes on to college, and gets to be a doctor. Now here's big-time gang leader who just got shot with a 44 slug, 2 of them in his abdomen, and he gets wheeled into the hospital, and sure enough, who comes down the hall rushing to his rescue? Little Cletus. Cletus, is that you? Yes, this is me. Don't you remember me? I'm the guy that you used to beat up. But I kept fighting and fighting and fighting, trying to be a doctor, not fighting you, just trying to fight those books.
Yes,
and
sir.
I got to be a doctor, so I'm going to try to save you. Little Cletus that you used to beat up. So what's the message in this? What's the logic in this? All you gang members, when you see a young black guy coming down the street trying to go through medical school, you need to do everything in the world to protect him. Tell your gang leaders, don't touch little Cletus. Cletus is going to be a doctor. We might need one with the kind of business we're in.
TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We've been discussing the sixth area of people activity, which is politics, and in particular we've been discussing the term racist, which we looked in the word guide and also in the textbook, workbook for victims for racism. A textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. If you'd like to get in contact with the show in the remaining moments, and I can't promise that, 1-877-932-9766 or the numero 7 at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y at gmail.com. I'm messing that up too. Anyway, this is from Brother Wesson, Dr. Wesson. He said this, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, did Bill Cosby's representative after the mistrial mess things up for themselves by bragging that they won, and then his wife, Camille, dogging the judge and the prosecutor? To me, this was a prime example of black folk rubbing a win in when white folks face, and you know how they hate that just like they do whenever we celebrate in sports after scoring. I think this was another example of what you like to call showing off. When we show off, the white supremacists got to find a way to punish us. I think this is why soon after they said all those things, the prosecutor was like, hey, we're going to retry this case ASAP. What are your thoughts, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I broad brush, you might say, using a slang term, which I very seldom use, but it's a codified response to anything dealing with what we call the Bill Cosby predicament. You can call it that or whatever name you want to call it. There is a codified response to the whole Bill Cosby matter, and that is you go straight to the codified response because it involves conflict of some type between white people and non-white people in the system of white supremacy. But then, this whole matter has a racial context to it, according to what the papers say, and and it also has a sexual context to it. Race and sex, two volatile categories. Anything sexual is volatile. Anything racial is volatile. Now, anything that a non-white person does or is alleged to have done that shouldn't be done in the system of white supremacy, either directly or indirectly, the white supremacists are to blame. That's just code. And, you just start with that. Anything that happens that shouldn't happen, that involves a non-white person. Now, this applies to any category. Anything. Economics, education, entertainment, sex, war, whatever. Anything that happens in the prison system of white supremacy that should not happen, all right? And the whole prison system is something that shouldn't happen, all right? So therefore, you don't have to go through the details of anything. You just simply say the white supremacists are to blame for this whole matter, because they engineered it either directly or indirectly. So anybody mentions Bill Cosby or Mike Tyson or whomever, ultimately, the ultimate blame is the white supremacists. Now, I'm just saying that just to brush it off to the side, anything like that? No, that's true. Why? Because the white supremacists are in charge of this nursery. See, black people, as a whole, worldwide, are in a nursery. that's also a prison. But we in that prison system have been made to be infantile people. We are boys and girls. We are children. We do things that children should be expected to do when they don't have the correct supervision, and we definitely don't have the correct supervision. White supremacy is not the correct supervision. So therefore, we are alleged, or sometimes are guilty, of doing thousands of things that shouldn't be done. The one thing that we all do every day is cooperate with an unjust system called the system of white supremacy. So everything in the system is poisonous. So you put poison in, you get what? According to logic, poison out. Because that's what you put in.
Mm-hmm.
The system of white supremacy is a system that teaches what? All kinds of sexual activity and anti-sexual activity that should not exist at all. And so who is to blame for this? The wardens of the prison, the white supremacists themselves.
That sounds like it's toxic, trashy, and tragic.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
It's the tragic arrangement. This whole arrangement we have is poisonous. There's nothing that's not poisonous about it. So what else is new? People say this thing, this black person did this black person, and this black person has a good reputation, and that reputation, black people all have a terrible reputation. Why? We're victims of white supremacy. That's no reputation to have. That's the only reputation that really counts that we got.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that was a good program, Mr. Fuller, today. Thank you, and thank you, callers, for all of your calls and your emailers. Dr. McKinley, we're going to get to your email next week because we simply have run out of time. So let me just say this. Thank you for listening. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next week.